Hello, friends. The 789th day of the war between Russia and Ukraine continues. Yesterday, the Russian Ministry of Defense announced the capture of Avdiivka, northeast of Chasiv Yar. Let me note that the Ukrainian military telegram channel Deep State reported on April 13 that the village was lost. At the same time, Russian military telegram channels also wrote about this. But apparently, Russian troops managed to gain a foothold there only now. Although Ukraine has not officially confirmed this fact. The speaker of the Khortytsa group, Voloshin, also stated that the situation here has worsened in recent days. Here, the enemy army does not stop trying to continue to storm the positions of our defenders, using all types of weapons, artillery, tanks, drones of various types, as well as aviation to strike with guided bombs in order to achieve their goal to reach the borders of the Donetsk region, Voloshin said. Cherniak, an officer of the Rubish Brigade of the National Guard, said yesterday that the Russians are advancing towards Chasiv Yar. Russian troops are moving quite significantly in this direction. Fighting is already taking place directly in the vicinity of the city of Chasiv Yar, which was destroyed a year ago. There are no hard fortifications there, Cherniak said. He also says that the Russians have gained a foothold in Avdiivka. Also, according to him, fighting is taking place in the vicinity of Yevhenii, which is an outpost in front of Chasiv Yar. At the same time, Cherniak says Russian troops also attack north of Yevhenii, despite the fact that the positions of the Ukrainian armed forces are higher and inconvenient to storm. Why is this so? Because our military personnel are very busy with frontal assaults on the Russians and constant air raids by Russian aviation, and this allows the enemy to slowly but still advance towards the city, he explained. As of today, no significant changes have been recorded in the Chasiv Yar area. The enemy is pressing west of Avdiivka and is making attempts to improve its tactical positions in the northern part of the Stupki-Golubovsky II reserve. Heavy fighting continues in the Avdiivka direction. Bild military analyst Julian Ropke writes today that Russian troops broke through the Ukrainian defenses northwest of Avdiivka and entered the village of Yevhenii. According to him, the Russian army advanced along the railway 3 kilometers deep into the Ukrainian positions and entered the village. He notes that the Ukrainian armed forces successfully held the defense in this direction for several months, but have now abandoned their positions for an unknown reason. Ropke believes that Russia wants to strengthen the breakthrough and expand the bridgehead around Yevhenii. Today, Russian military telegram channels are also writing about the Russian breakthrough, claiming that Russian troops have already gained a foothold in the central part of the village. Also, the Ukrainian military telegram channel Deep State confirms the capture of part of Yevhenii by the Russians and writes that the breakthrough occurred due to the fact that the Russians caught the defense forces during the change of units. The enemy managed to take advantage of the situation and entered the southern part of the village in multi-story buildings. According to Deep State, yesterday quite strange events took place in the village itself, and as a result today the enemy began to have serious tactical success. The telegram channel of the 46th Brigade writes about the tactics used by the Russians. According to him, in order to secure his advance to Yevhenii, the enemy is securing himself north of the settlement with a strike on the Karamik Novo-Kalinovi Arhangelski Directorate. At the same time, it strikes in the Berdichi-Semenivka strip. This is a relatively new tactic among the Russians, which they also tried at Chasiv Yar. It involves a simultaneous strike in two directions in the zone of action of the corps and army. This double strike tactic has a disadvantage. Carrying out strikes on two operational directions does not give the powerful effect when troops are concentrated on one direction of the main attack. But there is also a plus. Two attacking directions neutralize the capabilities of the enemy, in this case us, regarding the maneuver of reserves. It's one thing to close one breakthrough, another thing to close two. Yes, this tactic is readable, but now it has made it possible to enter Yevhenii and advance to the center of the village, writes the Telegram channel of the 46th Brigade. I note that Yevhenii is a key point of defense of the Ukrainian armed forces north of Avdiivka, as it is located at a commanding height. The loss of a settlement will create a threat for Ukrainian troops to be attacked in the rear and flanks in several directions at once. On the one hand, to the south and west, to the rear of the units that are now trying to build a new line of defense in Berdichi, and to the west of them. On the other hand, to the northeast with the prospect of reaching the rear of Ukrainian troops in New York and Toretsk. Today, the Russian Ministry of Defense announced the capture of Novomikhailivka. The Ukrainian resource Deep State reports that the Russians have advanced into this village, and its map confirms that it is almost completely captured. Ukraine has not officially confirmed this. The battle for the small village, where about 1,500 people lived before the war, lasted 6 months. It was defended by the 79th Separate Air Assault Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. She recently published an interactive map where she noted all the Russian armored vehicles that burned there. Ukrainian paratroopers counted 314 tanks, armored personnel carriers, and infantry fighting vehicles. Independent observers estimate this figure at 263. They take into account only those vehicles whose destruction was caught on video. According to Ukrainian Telegram channels, today the enemy occupied the remaining western part of Novomikhailivka and advanced further south in an area up to 6.2 kilometers wide and to a depth of 1.5 kilometers. Meanwhile, the American Institute for the Study of War writes that the situation at the front could be unfortunate for the Ukrainian armed forces in the coming weeks, even if the United States begins to supply military aid. New U.S. assistance will not begin to have an impact on the frontline situation for several weeks. Thus, the frontline situation will likely continue to deteriorate during this time, especially if Russian forces escalate their attacks, military experts wrote. Ukrainian forces may suffer additional setbacks in the coming weeks, but most likely, they are likely to be able to hold off the current Russian offensive if renewed U.S. assistance arrives quickly. It is also indicated that it is not yet clear how large the first tranche of assistance will be and what it will include. But in any case, the delivery of aid will take several weeks, and it will also take time to distribute what is received. We will talk in more detail about the allocated assistance from the United States in the following videos. A Ukrainian swam to Belarus on a mattress along the Dnipro River. He was tried for illegal border crossing, Radio Liberty reports, citing a court decision. The incident occurred on March 17. The man was detained approximately 3 kilometers east of the village of Bragin. On April 4, the case of border violation was considered by the Central District Court of Gomel. The Ukrainian did not appear in court. According to the decision of the Belarusian court, the Ukrainian must pay a fine, and the mattress is subject to confiscation. Nothing has been reported about the further fate of the Ukrainian citizen. This is perhaps the first recorded case since the beginning of the war when a Ukrainian illegally left Ukraine for Belarus along the Dnipro River. It also raises the question of how controlled the border between the two countries is. Based on official reports, it seemed that there was almost a front line there on the Ukrainian side. But it turns out that even on a mattress you can sail down the river to Belarus. Friends, preparing these daily reports has become my full-time job, and I have no other job for obvious reasons. There have been few views on the channel lately, which is why I ask for your help. If you have the opportunity to support me financially, I would be very grateful. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.